Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for today's webinar. It takes a whole team, success stories from the butterfly approach, co-hosted by CARP Ottawa chapter and Family Councils Ontario. My name is Taeyang Jung. I am the bilingual events manager at FCO, and I'll be your co-host today. Before we start, I would like to take a moment to recognize the land on which we are gathered today. I am currently in Toronto, which is seated on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat people, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. I wanted to share a few logistics and housekeeping rules before we turn things over to my co-host, Kathy. First, I will pull up this short poll in order for us to know who our audience is and how you heard about this webinar. So if you could take a quick second to answer these questions while I go through the logistics and housekeeping rules. Um, You'll notice that every participant is in listen-only mode. So we have reserved time at the end of the webinar for an interactive question and answer period. Margaret from CARP will facilitate that Q&A session, and you are welcome to use the Q&A box to ask your questions. You can put your questions on there throughout the presentation, and we will get to it at the end. And if you have any technical questions or if you're experiencing any technical difficulties, feel free to write it in the chat box. And I can also address those throughout the presentation. And if you want to interact throughout the presentation, you are welcome to use the chat box for that as well. So for your information, as you can tell, this webinar is being recorded. We try to record most of our webinars so that people who weren't able to be present today can view them, or you can view it again. And the webinar will be available on Family Councils Ontario YouTube channel next week. So, without further ado, I will pass it to my co-host Kathy to present our speakers.
Thank you, Taeyang. Good afternoon, everyone, and many thanks to Family Councils Ontario for co-hosting our Lunch and Learn webinars again this fall. For those who are joining us for the first time, my name is Kathy Wright, and I chair Ottawa's Advocacy Working Group on Long-Term Care, which includes members from Ottawa, Mississauga, Hamilton, and Niagara. And we'd like to have more members from other parts of Ontario if anybody out there is interested in joining us. For the last 5 years, we have been collaborating with other CARP chapters as well as like-minded organizations across Ontario to influence the change in long-term care from institutions to homes. What this means is transitioning from the traditional institutional, medical, and task-oriented model of care to a person-centered or emotion-based approach where 12 to 16 residents live in a smaller home-like environment, and where residents, staff, and families all live with the dignity and respect they deserve. This change is happening, but a little bit slower than we would like it to be. However, exciting news is on the horizon, we hope. Last month, the Ministry of Long-Term Care confirmed its investment of $9 million to train staff in emotion-based care. The plan is to set up 15 pilot homes where this training will be done. Progress has been slow, but in fact, if this actually happens and the right leaders are chosen, it has the potential to be a game changer for our long-term care homes in Ontario. If you're interested in more information about our work, please contact us at our website at www.changeltcnow.ca. I now have the pleasure of introducing our speakers for today, Sally Knocker and Lindsay Marinovic. Sally has worked with older adults for her entire career of over 38 years. stemming from her formative relationship with her grandmother. I'm sure we'll hear a bit more about that as Sally speaks to us. She is a consultant and trainer with Meaningful Care Matters, an international organization reducing institutional features of care and motivating teams to create a real feeling of family and home using the butterfly approach. Sally is based in the UK, but is married to a Canadian, yay, and has worked extensively with butterfly projects in both Ontario and Alberta. She is the author of Loving the Essence of Being a Butterfly in Dementia Care. Lindsay has more than 20 years' experience supporting older adults living in long-term care in both leadership and direct care roles. As the resident experience lead at the Elliott community in Guelph, Lindsay is leading impactful culture change through the butterfly approach. Prior to joining the Elliott team, she led the implementation of the butterfly approach at Sunnyside Home in the region of Waterloo. Lindsay will share her experience to show that long-term care can look and feel like a real home, and that a person-centered, emotion-based model of care is both achievable and sustainable in Ontario. So we're so fortunate to have you both with us. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I'll now pass the mic over to you, Sally.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Lovely to be here, and really lovely to be here with my friend and colleague Lindsay. And Lindsay has the real accolade of having achieved implementing Butterfly in two separate communities. So, and I met her about I think it's 7 years ago now, Lindsay, isn't it? Doing a training in Toronto 7 years ago. And I remember her passion and her enthusiasm then, and it's just brilliant to fast forward all these years and see you really putting all the things that we talked about and wanted to happen into practice. So it's lovely to do a double act with you, Lindsay, doing it on the ground. I mean, I'm doing a lot of education, but it's just great to work with someone who's really achieving it on the ground. So I thought I'd start with a little story. I love stories, coming from a drama therapy background. And it's really about two different visits to a care home, and two different experiences. And I think it kind of really sets the scene for what we're going to be talking about today. So both these visits made me want to cry in very different ways. And when we talk about emotion-based care, sometimes it's hard because actually it really gets to us very deeply when we're in this work. And that's in a way what we're asking team members to do, but to feel things more emotionally. And in the first home, I arrived at 8:30 in the morning. I walked down a very long, bare, beige hallway, very familiar to many of you who've worked in long-term care over the years. Call bells are going off, and a man's voice is shouting for help from one of the bedrooms. At the end of the hallway, there is a woman sitting in a wheelchair beside the nursing station, and she has her head in her hands. Again, a not unfamiliar sight, sadly. When she sees me, she looks up, and her eyes look hauntingly lost. She tells me she is waiting and hoping. And she says, "We do an awful lot of waiting here." Throughout the morning, I see why. Staff are stressed and rushed. They're not unkind. They don't know another way to be. Someone's phoned in sick, and they have extra people to get up and washed and dressed. People sit in lines of chairs in lounges with the television on very loudly. Nobody seems to be watching it. Staff come in and out from time to time, but none of them stop for any length of time, and there's very little conversation. When I leave about an hour later, I feel emotional. I remember the woman who tried to reach out to me and wonder if the man who called out now had someone with him. I cried because I felt sad, but I also felt really angry. I cry because I know it can be different, and that isn't good enough. On another visit to a care home, I arrive at much the same time, 8:30 in the morning. A woman living with dementia greets me with a big smile. She tells me she's busy as she must feed her animals. We walk arm in arm down a colourful hallway, and she points out the pictures of cows and chickens on the walls and tells me about her life as a farmer's wife. There's the smell of fresh bread in the kitchen, and a young woman with a large pink bow in her hair is frying bacon for breakfast. There are 3 people sitting at the table, chatting and laughing as they eat together. And it's not really clear and doesn't really matter whether they're people living or working there. A woman walks into the room and she's pushing a pram and she tenderly talks to the baby in the pram. A man, who's probably a maintenance person, comes into the room with another gentleman walking beside him, holding a bag of tools, and they're talking about all the jobs that they need to do for that day. The same man greets and compliments one of the older women at the table, and she blows him a kiss. In a corner of the room, there's a woman in the much later experiences of dementia sitting looking out of the window at the birds. And there's a team member sitting quietly with her, holding her hand. I feel really emotional again, but this time they are tears of happiness and relief. So what if I was to tell you that those 2 places were the same home, the same place, the same people? The first experience in January 2023 and the second in January 2024 after a year-long butterfly project. What did we do? We led a transformation by supporting people to be with, not just do for, to let go of task-orientated regimes, and to really share the day with people like friends and family. And in this presentation, Lindsay and I hope to show you how inspiring leaders working alongside emotionally intelligent teams who are well supported can foster a whole culture that breaks down these silos and supports people to work together cohesively to create a care home where every day is filled with love, fun, and purpose. And that's our aim today. So we're going to start by giving you a little bit of background on the butterfly approach. I hope some of you have heard of it. I noticed in the
Looks like we may have lost Sally. So I can jump in until she gets back online. But just sharing a little bit about the history of the butterfly approach. It was started over 30 years ago by Dementia Care Matters in the United Kingdom. And it was acquired by Meaningful Care Matters in 2019. And the Meaningful Care Matters has butterfly homes around the world in countries including the United Kingdom, Ireland, Canada, Singapore, and Australia. And in addition to long-term care homes, Meaningful Care Matters also works with day services in a number of these countries, as well as an acute care organization here in Ontario. So the Meaningful Care Matters team, including Sally and many other talented individuals who are passionate about changing the culture of care for older adults, has a wealth of experience in nursing, occupational therapy, education, and drama therapy. So when you work with them, you get a little bit of everything. So moving on, a little bit about the butterfly approach and what is happening here in Ontario. Meaningful Care Matters is currently working with 36 long-term care homes across the province. You can see them there on the map. There are, I believe, 18 accredited services in Ontario. There are 5 day programs and, like I said, 1 acute care hospital. And they are still growing and continuing to acquire new partners across Ontario. Okay, Sally, I see you're back. I just finished talking about
Good. Thank you.
what's happening across Ontario. So I'm just going to move on to the next slide and pass it back to you to talk about some key concepts in a butterfly home.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Don't know what happened. Just locked out. So have you talked about the Canadian landscape? Yeah. So key concepts. You've probably heard, obviously, some of them in my story just now. And you talked at the beginning, Kathy, about creating a sense of real homes. And it is a challenge with larger buildings and big communities of people to create this sense of home. But it is possible, as we're gonna show in this presentation. The breaking down of them and us is very key, getting rid of uniforms, getting rid of large features like big reception desks and big nursing stations. People very much looking and feeling like you can't always tell who are team members and who are people living in the home, because it's that sense of know them and us. And I think you see that beautifully in this picture with Benjamin in a home in England, learning some knitting from Maureen here, and this real sense of lovely connection between two people of different age groups, different backgrounds, kind of sharing the day together and having some laughter and connection. And of course, the important message, no one gets forgotten. I think very often in some larger long-term care facilities, those in the later experiences of dementia or those who have complex needs can sometimes get left out or lost in these larger groups. And so the key part of Butterfly is that everybody is reached in a way that makes sense to them. And we don't forget those who are in the later experiences of dementia in particular. A lot of people see Butterfly as part of the colourful environments, the enriched environments, and things in the environment to look at and to do to create opportunities for or invitations for things to do. But I think it's a really important message in this webinar to say that the environments on their own are nothing without the people who are in them making these connections and really shifting their approach from the very task-focused approach that colourful walls are hopeless if we don't actually have people who really understand and can deliver on this model. And a key part of that, of course, is that every single member of the team, as we're going to show in this presentation, has a part to play, whether it's a housekeeper, a member of the food services or kitchen team, the maintenance, the care workers, the nurses, the administrators. All can be part of this change. There's the trying to get away from the "it's not my job" mentality, so that everyone can be part of these interactions, as we see in this lovely, lovely image. Next. And I suppose that quote, which some of you will have seen out on social media a lot, is one that we keep coming back to. We must always remember that we are working in people's homes. They are not living in our workplace. So how do we reduce this sense of being a place of work? People walking through living room areas with bits of paper looking for a staff member to talk to about shifts, or when somebody's going on a break, all of these sort of work language that sort of happens as part of running a building, lessens the sense of people being in their own homes. I mean, how many of us have a complete stranger randomly walking through our living rooms as we're sitting having a conversation and watching the television with somebody just walking through our room? So thinking about the behaviors that we have that create that sense of being at work. I mean, obviously the uniform piece is a big part of that, but it's also the way that we move through the space, the way we create that sense, looking around at the signage on the walls. There's so many signs in buildings. Some of them we have to have in relation to fire exits and things like that, but a lot of signs can be reduced to look much more home-like, so that it doesn't feel that we're in a building where work is the main focus. We're reminding ourselves that we are in people's homes.
Okay, so we'd just like to share a little bit, about what is involved in a butterfly transformation and what a butterfly home does not look like and what a butterfly home does look like. So I'm going to go through a series of photos. Some of these are from the Elliott community and some are from other organizations that are supported by Meaningful Care Matters through a butterfly transformation. Before I dive into it, just a little bit of background about the Elliott community. In case you're unfamiliar, we are located in Guelph, Ontario, and here at the Elliott community, we provide long-term care to 114 people, but also on our campus of services, we provide 2 levels of retirement living and life lease. So certainly supporting older adults in a variety of different ways. So the photos that I'm going to show you today are from our long-term care home, and they are from 3 of the 5 areas within our long-term care home that have become accredited in the butterfly approach. We are just starting out the transformation on the other 2 home areas. So this image here on the screen is one of the lounge areas in our Wellington home area. It's clean, it's tidy, but if you look closely, it's also quite empty. There's not much to do here in this lounge, aside from a piano and maybe one baby over there in the corner, and it really doesn't speak to the spirit of the home or who lives here. But the next photo shows you the same lounge after the butterfly transformation. Now it's bright, it's colorful, it's lively. We've brought in elements of the outside and of nature. The piano has become a music nook, and one gentleman loves to play piano there most mornings during the week. There are lyrics of a favorite song on the wall, and if you press that pink button, it might be kind of hard to see in the photo, but it will actually play that song, It's a Good Day by Peggy Lee. So we have a lot of fun with that. Again, this is what a butterfly home doesn't look like. This is the before. This is the elevator lobby on the 3rd floor of long-term care at the Elliott. And this really resonated when I heard Sally talking about the beige walls earlier. It's beige, it's brown, it's not very inviting, cold, clinical, lots of signs on the wall, really makes it feel like a place of work and not someone's home. The other thing that I'd like to point out is that door at the end of the hallway there. That's a door to one of our home areas fountain. And when we started our butterfly transformation, that door was locked. Fountain was a secure home area. And this is what it looks like now. It's warm, it's inviting. There's images of a neighborhood on the left and a beautiful park on the right. You see a bright tree on the other side of that door that was closed in the first picture, but is now wide open, that really invites you to walk through and explore. And people living in all 3 home areas on the 3rd floor are invited to safely explore and find the place in the home area that feels the most comfortable to them to spend their time in. And this is a photo of one of our dining rooms before the change. You'll notice again, it's clean and it's tidy, but the tables feel very separate. People are eating on their own or maybe with 1 or 2 other people. The walls are empty. It feels a little uninviting. But here's that same dining room after implementing the butterfly approach. We changed the color, obviously, but we added many other elements to make this space feel warm, to feel inviting. The small tables were replaced by a large family-style table where people can eat together. There are conversation starters on the table to help facilitate that meaningful engagement at mealtime. Condiments on the table so people can fix their food the way that they like, as well as colorful placemats and dishes and mugs to make it look more like home. And this is just another example of a beautiful, inviting dining table. This is from another butterfly home, Huntington House. This is located in Surrey, England. And another photo that just really shows what it does look like at mealtime. This photo is from Westview, a recently accredited butterfly care home in Devon, England. And it shows people sitting around the dining table sharing a meal and a conversation with one another. But what I love about this photo even more is that it's difficult to tell, just looking at this photo, who's living in the home and who's working in the home. When I look at this photo, I see a group of people sitting together, sharing a meal, and they look like friends or family. And it's just somewhere that I want to be. What else does it look like? A butterfly home looks like this. Two people sitting together, visiting with a dog. So these two people live at the Elliott community, and the dog that they're visiting here is Daisy. And Daisy is a dog that belongs to one of the nurses on the BSO team. And I think looking at this photo, the smile says it all. They love Daisy. And lastly, it looks like people being together, spending time together. This is a member of our recreation team sharing a moment reading the paper with someone who lives at the Elliott community. And they were talking together and laughing together and just really having a great time. I'm going to pass it back over to Sally. Sally, I think you're on mute.
Thank you, Lindsay. So we thought it was an opportunity to involve some of the participants here. If you're familiar with the chat function, it would be really lovely to hear from you what you feel are the essential qualities of a good leader in the long-term care context, or possibly even in hospitals or daycare as well, in terms of leading this change that we started to talk about. So if you could take a few minutes to just write down a few words or phrases, if you were trying to describe what you would be looking for if you were recruiting a leader for this culture change work. Take some time. It'd be lovely to have some participation. Chat box is usually at the bottom for most people, I think. Are you seeing it? Thank you, Tay. Tay's just showed us where it is on the... What makes a good leader?
I think I'm just seeing in the Q&A that the chat box is disabled. I'm not sure, Tay, if you're able to enable it.
Yeah, I would imagine someone has tried by now. So we're not seeing anything. There is a problem there. We'll give it a minute or a minute longer, and then if not, we'll move swiftly on. Whilst we're waiting, I'll just give a bit of a description of this lovely picture of Lindsay's at the Elliott community. In the training that we do, we always have, oh, good one, Erin, thank you, open to change. We have a training exercise around developing empathy for what it might be like to have dementia, trying to draw a star backwards, looking into a mirror with the backwards image. And it's really important we find that trainers, the training includes all leaders, not just the direct staff. So part of being a good leader for me is being willing to be part of the education process. So we're getting some answers now. Thank you, Tay, for opening that. Open to change, empathetic and compassionate. A good leader understands people and is a good listener. They've got their feet on the ground. They're knowledgeable to be able to support and mentor and coach their teams. Someone who has a genuine rapport with residents themselves, you know, is able to actually spend time and be with people themselves and model that. I think that's very key. Energetic, confident, compassionate. That compassion word is so key, isn't it? Able to be in the moment, able to support feelings. Colourful, gentle, clear communicator, empathetic, and then funky. Loving that, Michelle. Bit of funky is definitely butterfly. A leader who is passionate about the change as the rest of the team and will be on the floor walking the walk. Thank you, Deb. Yeah, very important to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. Be patient, think outside the box, be fun, be colourful. Don't know whether any of you've seen recently on the Meaningful Care Matters Facebook page and Instagram, we've got Sandy, one of our leaders in Ontario, wearing this fabulous pink feather outfit. She's definitely a leader, sort of doing the fabulous and funky dress up stuff. Those are all great words. Think about the residents and the fact that it's their home first. Absolutely, reminding people of that always. And remembering that the family members, the visiting relatives, are also a key part of that community, I think is really, really important too. Being present. Yeah. I mean, the key challenge for many leaders, isn't it, is being stuck often in an office, buried in paperwork and lots of regulations and requirements and expectations, and to actually allow yourself to get out there and be in the home areas regularly is one of the biggest things we find, Lindsay, isn't it, in the process, is really sort of setting yourself your own expectations about being able to escape the office and be out there. Natasha, being real and knowing what it is to be vulnerable. Thank you for sharing that piece. And it is a big part of our training, seeing vulnerability as a strength, a bit as Brené Brown talks about, that being able to reflect on our own vulnerability, that we see that we have vulnerabilities in the same way or different ways to the people we support, and that we have to have that emotional intelligence to be able to reflect on that experience and how we can make that help us being better leaders. And being someone who truly cares. Absolutely. That's lovely. Thank you so much for those contributions. We'll probably, those can keep going in the background if we want, but we will move on from there. I think the emotional intelligence piece is one that we really, really do hone in on in the training. Some people ask us, can you teach that if people have got it a bit bashed out of them in their careers? And I think the answer is yes, you can bring it out in people, but obviously if it's not in people's core, it's not something that's easy to teach. You do have to have it right in your core. But the whole process of our leadership development and training really does try and bring that to the fore and give people permission to be more real and vulnerable. So let's hear from the next slide, an analysis.
Thanks, Sally. So as we were thinking about what to share in terms of emotionally intelligent leadership and what makes a good leader, I decided to reach out to some leaders within our organization and ask them what some of their key learnings were when implementing Butterfly. So I'd like to pass it over to these leaders to share with their own voices a little bit more about what they learned. The first person that we're going to hear from today is Devin. Devin is an Associate Director of Care in Long-Term Care, and she's going to share a little bit about the importance of modeling and building relationships with the team.
Be one among your team. Work through decisions being made together instead of simply telling people what to do. Share experiences and be vulnerable to further remove that boundary of us versus them. You know, in training, we talk a lot about removing those barriers between the people that live in the home, but I think we can even further do that between being a leader and the team that we lead to make it feel more like a team. Modeling butterfly and person-centered care happens by taking the time to stop what you're doing and realize that people are the priority. As a leader, that may mean even taking care of my team, as they're the ones who take care of the people who live here.
And Devin talks about training. And one thing that I think is so important when we're talking about training our teams in emotion-focused care is to also include the leaders in that training. Because really then everyone throughout the organization at all levels has the same information and can use that information to make decisions and make sure that it's being true to that philosophy. The other thing I just like to point out, as Devin talks about modeling, This is actually a photo that she took when she was on site with the night team for some huddles. So one thing that we encourage the night staff to do in the butterfly approach is to consider wearing pajamas to work. And that is because it's nighttime and people are sleeping. And when they see others in the clothes that they wear to sleep, it really just reinforces, that it is night and that they might want to be more relaxed and not up and about. Okay, next we're going to hear from Alex. Alex is our infection control lead at the Elliott, and I get a lot of questions about the relationship between infection control and butterfly and how we merge the two together. And here Alex reflects about how both IPAC and butterfly work hand in hand to support the whole person.
Sometimes infection prevention can feel at odds with person-centered care. PPE, isolation protocols, and cleaning routines can seem like barriers to connection, but our experience has shown that when done thoughtfully, IPAC actually enhances the butterfly approach. It allows residents to live safely, participate fully, and experience meaningful moments without unnecessary risk. Since adopting the butterfly approach, we witnessed a remarkable shift. Residents are not just cared for, they are truly lived with. Staff feel more connected to their work, and IPAC is no longer viewed as a separate set of rules, but as an essential component of a home where safety and joy coexist.
And lastly, we're going to hear from Jocelyn. Jocelyn is our quality and risk resource nurse, and she reflects here on her growth as a leader through the butterfly approach.
A good leader is one that is compassionate, passionate, leads by example, and recognizes their mistakes, doing the work to repair relationships with honesty. I learned and was reminded that presence matters. My comfort level helping out on the home areas and knowing the people who live and work here matters. And the only way to increase my comfort level is to show up and interact.
So thank you so much to the leaders at the Elliott community for sharing their experience.
Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, it's lovely to hear the direct voices there. I loved the words where safety and joy can coexist. Just that's going to be my take home from today, because there was so much emphasis, isn't there, obviously on keeping people safe. But what we would say at Butterfly is that there's no point in being cocooned in cotton wool if you're physically safe but emotionally, lonely, bored, and desperately isolated. And the worst thing, I think, is being isolated in a whole group of people. I don't know whether anyone's had that experience where you've got lots of people around you, but you still feel terribly lonely inside. So I think the safety and joy thing is such a key one, and really focusing on psychological safety as well as physical safety. A key piece of Butterfly for us is an observational tool that we teach called the quiz tool. And so we really encourage leaders to get all their teams having an opportunity to spend 2 hours observing different parts of the day, at breakfast, to lunch, after lunch, evening, to really sit and see the day unfold and to really notice what it looks like, what it feels like, what it sounds like for the people living there, noticing the people who get a lot of interaction and those who get forgotten, noticing the noise that can disrupt the sort of homey feeling. So that observation piece is a really key learning tool, which we build into our training. And it's not just for leaders to do, but for the whole team to have that experience. We really want, as I said earlier, for leaders to get out of their comfort zone, as one of your leaders said, Lindsay, and spend time with people. And for some leaders, that takes a bit of confidence if they're not familiar, particularly with interacting with people living with dementia, to really build their confidence in actually spending time, not just walking through rooms and doing their sort of round, if you like, but actually taking people for walks, sitting and chatting to people at a meal, and sort of modeling the change that we want to see. So it, as was said in the chat box, really walking the walk, not just talking the talk. There's a nice picture there, Lindsay. I don't know whether you want to speak to that. There's a fun picture. Is that some of the Elliot doing a hats day, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, that was Fall Hat Day. I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. We decorated hats and had a lot of fun.
Yeah. And that's an interesting us and them between leaders. I find sometimes leaders dress quite formally and, the sort of more business suit type kind of vibe. So again, encouraging leaders to perhaps get out of their comfort zone a little bit in terms of thinking about what they wear, as I said earlier, with Sandy wearing her fabulous pink feathers for coming into work. Unusual. You're modelling the pink well there, Lindsay. So now we're going to hear from Marie, who lives at the Dundurn Place Care Centre in Hamilton, Ontario, Shadoki Falls House, which is the first butterfly house at Dundurn Place. And Marie was very much a businesswoman herself. She ran a business with her husband for many years, so she has a very strong sense of what it takes to be a good team. So I thought we would hear her perspective. It's me chatting to her in the background if we can get it to
hello.
Hello.
You were just telling me about what the principle is when you're working with people.
Yes.
What were you telling me?
I was telling you that we work with people, not for people.
Yeah.
Or not to people. We work with them.
And what's the difference with that, you think?
Oh, the difference is we all work together.
That's so true.
Yes, we do.
Creating a sense of a team, a family.
That's right, that's right.
And you felt you did that in your work?
I certainly hope so.
Oh.
That's what we tried for.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So certainly some great insight from Marie there into what it takes to build teams and to work with people. So I just like to share a few photos of some different members of the care teams in our home here at the Elliott and in a few other butterfly homes, just to show what's possible if people are open to stepping outside the tasks that are typically associated with their role in trying something new. So this was one of my favorite moments that I witnessed. Olivia here is a PSW at the Elliott. And as you can see, she has some tattoos all along one arm. And she was documenting one day, and one of the people living in the home was really interested in her tattoos. And so she invited her to color them in for her because they were only black and white. So she had a lovely time with this resident. They talked, they laughed together until Olivia's whole arm was filled with bright, her whole arm was filled with bright colors. So just a really creative way that she was thinking outside the box to build connection while also getting done the tasks that she needed to do. Here's a nurse, and this nurse works at St. Joseph's in Ireland. And a lot of times he'll bring his guitar to work with him. And so he'll spend time playing songs with the people living in the home. And maintenance, let's not forget about maintenance. They were also included in our training here at the Elliott. And here's a photo of one of our maintenance workers. His name is Rick. And he stepped away from the work he was doing in the garden that day to share lunch with someone who lives in the home. And then they played a game of pool together. And the housekeepers, we have some really, really creative housekeepers here at the Elliott. So here is a photo of two of them and how they've used some of their creative skills to decorate their cart. Helen's cart there on the right is decorated for Easter. And Rowena on the left, she's a painter. And so she not only painted her housekeeping cart, but she's also started painting aprons for members of the team. These are our activity aprons. So we ask the team to fill them not only with the things that they need, but with other things that they can use to connect with people living in the home and change a moment for them, make them smile, make their day a little bit brighter. The kitchen team, so much that we can do with food. So here's an Irish care worker on the left, and she sports fun aprons every day to make people smile. And on the right, we see a kitchen worker in Alberta frying eggs in the morning and bringing the smell of breakfast into the dining room. A laundry worker, she loved taking photographs, so she decided to start a camera club at her long-term care home in Devon, England. and the recreation team. Kaylee's a recreation worker at the Elliott, and her and the student that she was working with at the time created a hair train with a lady that lives in the home. This woman doesn't speak any English, but these three found a great way to connect and engage with one another without talking. And lastly, bringing the teams together through theme days. So we have a butterfly calendar and the team comes up with theme ideas each month. You saw the hat picture earlier. This is a photo of the team dressed up for 1950s Day. So I just want to show one quick example about what teamwork looks like in action when everything comes together beautifully. And here at the Elliott community, we had balconies on each of our home areas. And these balconies, I'll show you in a moment, they needed a little bit of work. They were a great opportunity for people to get outside, but they were empty. They were cold. They were not inviting, and people didn't want to spend a lot of time out there. So the team asked if they could take on the task of decorating the balconies. So I'd like to show you one of our PSWs, Jen, as she describes what this was like. We asked them to compete against each other, and each of the three home areas was given a budget and some parameters to work with, and they had to design a balcony that people wanted to be in and spend time on, and then we judged them at the end to see who won.
The balcony contest was a lot of fun. First it was coming up with a theme. What are we going to do? And it just so happened that many of our residents had really great camping stories and really great camping memories. So we all kind of got together and said, you know what, I think camping would be amazing. If we can pull this off, we can make our balcony look like a campground. So that's what we did. And we ended up getting the entire team involved, everyone from residents. We had residents' families involved, PSWs, maintenance, dietary, everybody was involved. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, so as you heard from Jen, the whole team was involved in this project, and I will let the results speak for themselves. So this is what our balconies looked like before the contest. Nice spaces, but empty. And I'm going to show you 3 photos of what they looked like after in 3 home areas. So the first balcony is our fountain home area, and we call this the sensory secret garden. So lush greenery that just got more lush as the season went on. Lighting activities there on the end. This is the balcony in the Wellington home area, and they decided to make a tiki bar. So they've got their mini golf, and they've also got a tiki bar there in the corner that was built by one of our maintenance workers out of pallets that he collected. And lastly, this is the balcony that Jen was talking about in the video. This is the Edinburgh home area. And as she said, they decided to turn theirs into a campground. So you can see over to the left, there's a cooler with some drinks and a tent. There is a flower box that people help to paint and plant. There's cedar boughs along the edge of the balcony there, which brought a beautiful cedar smell to the space, and an artificial campfire as well that everyone can sit around and talk. So before we wrap up, I just want to share this beautiful quote from one of the family members here at the Elliott community. We saw the impact in the work that we did, but I also just wanted to share some of the impact that families are experiencing, that people that live here are experiencing, because it goes beyond physical spaces. She says, "I come here and I don't want to go home. It's so lovely. All the colors, the pictures, and the details. It's a beautiful family. Leadership here respond very quickly. They care. There is human attention, heart to heart. In the backyard, walking in the hallways, I don't see the distinctions between the roles. We all feel relaxed and comfortable." And this family member loved the Elliott community so much that she decided to volunteer as well. So we see her here often. Over to you, Sally.
Thank you. So yes, I suppose what we wanted to, we're getting short of time, but we've got 10 minutes, and I suppose just wanted to open the floor to people who feel able to ask any questions, but also whether anything that you've heard today has inspired you to share with others or to take action in the places where you work or visit. And also to ask the question what families and friends might be able to do to encourage even some small changes, because we've been talking about quite big shifts, but small changes make a difference too. So over to you, Marg.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for what you've shared through your stories and through the words of different leaders and your pictures. And you brought messages of hope actually to us all. And you've shown us that it can be different. And there was while I wait for questions to come up in the chat box, it was just a few observations I had. Some of the lines that you used were meaningful to me. We are in people's homes. That one kept running through my mind for sure. That if we think about that and keep that forefront in our minds, then that changes the way we approach people and what we say and how we do things. And I absolutely loved what you did, Lindsay, with the elevator picture, the transformation that you did in the Elliott home. That was wonderful. It really looked quite beautiful when you'd finished decorating that. And so wonderful. And then there was that one story there from the infection control person, and I agree with you, Sally, where safety and joy exist together. That's how it is. And I guess for me, when she said that, it was how you do it. That's what I think she was trying to say, how you approach that. So here's a question from me then. Let's say I work in one of those dreary long-term care homes that you showed at the beginning, Sally. How does one go about wanting to start a butterfly care home?
I think it's obviously recognizing that something needs to change is the first point. Because I think sometimes people don't realize until they've seen something different. So sometimes quite a lot of people start by visiting a butterfly home and seeing how different it can be, because sometimes it feels a bit overwhelming. And then trying to get the team members on board to think about what might need changing. I mean, obviously, we would love people to be in touch with Meaningful Care Matters to talk about our various options to support that. And we have many different ranges of options to do that, including training and leadership education, and obviously the project work that we do over a year to 18 months with many homes. So contacting us obviously would be one option. But sometimes just starting small, thinking about, looking at the dining room space and thinking, well, how can we make this less bare? What are the things that we can bring into this room to make it more like a dining room at home? I do an exercise in training about thinking about our own houses and what we have in our own houses, and thinking about the things that we might be able to bring in to make things more homey. I mean, Lindsay mentioned the lovely fireplace. That's often a real feature of many homes, isn't it? Did you want to add anything, Lindsay, there?
No, I think you covered it all, Sally. I think the only thing that I would add is, just taking that time to step back from your tasks and step back from the work that you're doing, and maybe even from your role, and just try and look objectively at the home you're working within and figure out if this is somewhere that you would want to live if you had to move into long-term care tomorrow. And if the answer is no, start to think about what you could change and those small changes that Sally talked about, and start to explore maybe some of the bigger changes, like adopting a model of care such as Butterfly.
Yeah, I think that those are excellent suggestions. I think that as we go about trying to advocate for more homes to do this, I agree. It's one step at a time, and start small. Start doing little things in the home. We can get mired in conversations about regulations. Heaven forbid, they're they can be oppressive. But start with one little things at a time, and I think it can make a big difference. You gave us wonderful tips on different things, different colors, different activities, the way people were sitting together, and getting out of your office. I thought that was great. Taking away your nursing station, just removing it and figuring out how else you could do it. All these things are really so important, just little things that maybe can be
Yeah,
done.
the nursing station one is a great one, Marg. We have had a few instances where people have taken a pickaxe to the nursing station. It's been quite a sort of symbolic kind of getting rid of the institutional thing.
Right.
Obviously in a safe way, I should
Yeah.
add. I see we've got a question from someone
Yes.
in Northern Ontario.
Costs. Yeah, something to do with costs. How just to become and continue. Are there costs involved if you were part of Meaningful Care Matters, Butterfly Home?
Yes, there are costs. If you want to do a full project with us, we are planning and just developing at the moment a course of 6 days in 3 2-day modules, starting in the new year for leaders who don't feel able to obviously have the money to necessarily invest in a whole project with us, to give people the tools to do, if you like, a more do-it-yourself type model, which would make it more affordable for leaders to attend those 6 days. So that might be something to inquire about. The course is called Free to Be Me, which is a sort of strapline for Meaningful Care Matters. So please contact us, obviously, at the email address you see there if you want to be on the list for that. And we do have projects who work with us and, just take elements of some of the training we offer rather than doing a full project. But yeah, it's a cost. But I said to Lindsay earlier that it's possibly the cost of one person's bed for a year to make a difference to potentially 80 or 100 people's lives. And I think sometimes that puts perspective on making that investment for providers to think about. We know that homes that have the butterfly approach always have very full occupancy and are very popular because of obviously what relatives and families and people living there see when they visit. So it is an investment, but with wonderful returns, not least from a quality of life perspective, obviously. On the northern question, we have worked in, Temiskaming is probably as far north as we've gone. Am I getting my geography right, Lindsay? My Ontario geography. So we do have team members in Canada who are on the road and willing to travel. But it is obviously a very, very big province to travel in. So we do pound a lot of miles to reach a lot of different projects all over Ontario.
Thunder Bay as well.
Thunder Bay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we were doing the map, we were mindful of reaching everyone, weren't we, Lindsay?
So when I initially approached you, and I just wanted to mention this, I approached you wondering if you would talk about leadership matters. And essentially what you're telling us, which is just absolutely wonderful, is that everybody's a leader. We're all part of the same team. And yes, it's not a top down, it's a together, we can do it together kind of approach. And you've modeled that in what you're saying and what you're doing. And one particular thing that caught my attention was, Lindsay, you mentioned about coming to work in your pajamas. Did you have any trouble with any staff doing that, or?
One of the first things that we do in a butterfly transformation project is to remove uniforms. So break down that barrier between us and them. And we invite people to come into work in their own clothes and things that reflect their personality, thinking about how they can use their clothing to connect with other people. And so it's a suggestion that we give to people who work at night that if they're comfortable and they want to try coming in their pajamas, they can. Certainly, it's not a requirement, and some have and told us they really enjoy that, and others choose to wear their own clothes, and that's okay. We try to give that flexibility so everyone can work and wear what's within their comfort level.
And also what I really liked was the way you focused on all the team, like the housekeepers were so creative. I think her cart looked like a barbecue, if I'm right.
It did.
Was it a barbecue?
We have the housekeepers, we have some wonderful housekeepers all over the world, making swans out of the towels and putting them on beds. And also that so many housekeepers have time in people's rooms, that sort of intimate time when so they reach people who spend a lot of time in their rooms and take the time to sit, to stop and chat. So I think you're right, Marg. A key principle is leaders can be found in very unexpected places.
Right.
Yeah.
And leaders who are leaders need to recognize that in order to get the best out of Butterfly, you have to a way, allow all your butterflies to flourish in the way that makes sense to them and to make that difference.
I'm very mindful of the time. There was a question for Maureen. I'm sorry. It was about, are there types of jobs you feel that caregivers could do inside? I'm assuming it's family care partners could do inside of a butterfly home. There is an email there for Lindsay and for Meaningful Care Matters, and I encourage you to use it, but I do need to
Yes,
turn things over
absolutely.
now.
Involvement of relatives, very key to success. And
Yes.
We've got lovely examples of that. A Portuguese relative, for example, running a prayer group in one of our homes. We've got
Right.
lovely examples.
Good, lovely. Well, then I hope that these people, Maureen, reach out and others if you have questions like that. Once again, our sincere thanks for you for being part of our webinar series. You've given us wonderful tips. I love all your pictures and all your ideas. Thank you so much. And I'll now turn it over to Tay.
Thank you so much, Margaret. Thank you once again, Sally and Lindsay, for your presentation today. I know we are short on time, so if anybody has any extra questions or things that weren't addressed today, you can contact Sally and Lindsay on the email address that they shared, or you can just connect with me and I will share it with them. And so thank you so much for being here today. Thank you to Margaret and Kathy from CARP for continuing this collaboration with Family Councils Ontario. We love bringing this webinar to our audience, and we actually have the next one already planned. It is on November 19. It is on Wednesday, 12 to 1, just like this one. It is on Family Care Partners, and the registration link will be shared on FCO's e-bulletin, weekly e-bulletin, either next Wednesday or the Wednesday after. So thank you so much for being here. This webinar has been recorded so you can view this and you can share it with your network. And we look forward to having you at our next event. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.